Howdy, folks. Welcome back to another special edition of the Left in Texas podcast. This particular interview series is for Texas Senate District 14, formerly held by Senator Kurt Watson.
Yeah,
So this is one of those legendary seats kind of in Travis County where we know, everybody's gonna get excited and it could be another person who gets in there for a really long time. So it's really important. We have two actually, again, very talented and seasoned candidates for this race. We interviewed both Sarah Eckhardt, who just stepped down as county judge. She previously was the county commissioner from Travis County. She stepped down, and basically because of the pandemic, she kind of she stepped down so because she had to in order to declare to run for this race. But she basically kind of stayed on to help manage the county through at least the first part of this pandemic and the sort of emergency response that the county was going through. She is actually a progressive. There's no question about her progressive bona fides, and I've seen her. She's an avid cyclist. I could say that about her too, because I've seen her show up to many events on her bicycle, which I always
we're
think
uh,
is pretty cool.
we're thinking she might also be an actress. Is that true?
According to Google search, when you type in her name, actress is the first thing that pops up.
well,
Uh, that's
I'd like
interesting.
to see what she's acted in. I was not aware of that aspect of her life.
Yeah, I guess so. She's acting as county judge right now, right? Because she stepped down, so officially.
Right there you go.
But
There you go.
aside from that, I don't know what else. But the other candidates running for this race in this primary runoff is State Representative Eddie Rodriguez. He is served in the state house for roughly 2 decades. My dad has been in the house almost 20 years. I think this is going to be his 20th year coming up, and they served together for almost that entire period.
Wow.
So I've known him and seen him for a very long time, and he's again another progressive champion in the House. Always worked on some really interesting things. I thought, aside from the obvious political progressive things, he's worked on some of the things and he'll talk about those. He talked about them in the interview, so I'll save that for the interview. But he did not have to step down to run for this seat. He should, be able to, maintain his current seat because this is a special election. But should he win, there will be another open seat for the Texas House.
Right.
And then that'll have to be backfilled. So that'll be interesting. As always, things are in Travis County. When these things happen, a high profile post comes up, usually starts that sort of chain of dominoes falling and everybody kind of musical chairs. So we see that here. And yeah, a couple of great candidates. We're going to have to make a tough choice here.
It's yeah. That's what I was going to say. Is just a couple of super enjoyable people to see them speak to a crowd, and the bona fides are impeccable, and just super cool people. I kind of feel like, and this might be Joe, this might be a function of myself thinking of myself as the eternal adolescent here in my early 50s. But I think of both Sarah and Eddie not so much as old schoolers, in spite of the fact that they both are, super well known and tons and tons of experience in Texas Democratic politics. But they both are kind of young sort of people in my view, and that I might be a little bit skewed about that. But I do think of both of these candidates as fresh faces for the Texas Senate. And that might be partly my own perspective, but I don't think of
Well,
either of these people as old codgers, by any
yeah.
stretch.
I mean, any Democrat is a fresh face for the Texas Senate, unfortunately.
That's kind of true
but
too.
but you're right, and Eddie's been in there for a long time, but he started when he was pretty young, and
Right.
Sarah Eckhart has certainly a certain pedigree, as that name Eckhart may be familiar to older voters because of uh, her family member who was a member of Congress. I think it was her father, if I'm not mistaken.
Pretty sure. Pretty sure.
Um, but um, but anyway, yeah. So you're absolutely right. This is sort of the next wave for Democrats leadership, and again, this is a seat because they are on the younger side that they could occupy for a very long time, and so that's kind of why this is such a big decision.
Right. Well, we're again. It's a blessing, but it's a tough blessing when you have what almost seems like suddenly we've got all this fantastic talent, and we gotta pick one or the other. So let's get to picking.
That's right. So without further ado, Sarah Eckhart and State Rep Eddie Rodriguez.
All right. Well, hey, I'm JD with the Left in Texas podcast, and I'm excited to be interviewing Judge Sarah Eckhardt, who's running for state senator. Thank you so much for joining our podcast.
Sure. It was exciting to get that. I saw you come up on my phone. I was like, it's JD. Awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you doing this on short notice. You know, early voting starts on Monday.
I know. Wow.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
So most people might not even realize there's a special election coming up, but there is. And it's actually got enormous shoes to fill. Senator Watson has retired, has gone on to be the dean of the University of Houston School of Public Affairs. And so now there's a foot race here. And, you know, the number one kind of thing people want to know is who are you? And let's hear a little bit about yourself. Why are you running?
Sure. Well, my name is Sarah Eckhardt. I was the Travis County judge for a while, and before that I was a county commissioner, and before that I was an assistant county attorney. So I've been doing a lot of county work for a lot of years, and basically working for the state, but at the local level, because that's what counties do. We are an arm of the state. We're there to govern 24/7, 365. And we've done really good work at the local level. We've established some great partnerships. They're not always easy partnerships, and they're not always smooth, but we do have a good commitment at the local level in the 5-county region for doing our homework and sitting down at the table and getting things done. We've learned to say and hear sometimes hard things from one another, but not harden to each other. And I think that really produces good government. I can't really describe the Texas legislature in the same way. And
Yeah.
certainly not the state Senate. But I think that we could all profit from that kind of collaborative leadership. And I think that SD 14 is an unusual district in that it is both urban and rural, including all of Bastrop and most of Travis County. And so it is liberal at its core, but it gets more conservative as you go further out. And it's shot through with a healthy dose of libertarian and independent as well. So I think if we can make it work here, we can scale it and make it work at the state level. And I'd like to go there and help.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, so I guess that's kind of one of those questions. If you were elected, what would be one of the first things you would really want to be working on at the state level?
Well, I think that COVID-19, of course, is looming large. I don't think that it has created our problems, but it has certainly amplified them. And we must turn our attention to ferrying the residents of Texas to the other shore of COVID-19 in a recovery of our health and a recovery of our economy. And in that recovery, I think that we have a golden opportunity to make our health and our economy better on the other shore than it was before COVID-19. I believe that we have a political moment where we could pull down Medicaid. And in that moment, we could also expand supports for market insurance in recognition that we are the lowest, we have the lowest insurance of any state in the union, more uninsured people than any place else in the nation. And that was before COVID-19. Now with all of these displacements, we're going to have more people who are uninsured as well as unemployed. So, and then on the economic recovery, I think this also is a moment where we could put down our swords and pick up our plowshares and recognize that you can't be pro-business without being pro-labor.
Right.
And in this economic recovery, now is the time to use those one-time dollars from the rainy day fund braided with our CARES Act money that's coming down from the feds so that we can make some investments that are going to really make individuals and businesses, particularly small businesses, far more resilient on the other shore.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, if this isn't a rainy day fund time, I don't really know what qualifies for what taps into the rainy day, you know, like it seems like a good opportunity for us to look at that.
Absolutely.
Do you think that there's going to be a willingness to maybe set aside what was a political idea, expanding Medicaid, and now the common sense nature of it will resonate with a majority of state senators and the governor and everybody else? Or do you think they're just going to retreat back to political?
I think that there will be some percentage that does fervently believe in the Grover Norquist idea that government should be shrunk so small that it can be drowned in a bathtub. But I think actually that faction is getting smaller, particularly in light of what we're seeing with real people, real Texans, real constituents really hurting from the economic and health effects of COVID-19, but also the economic and health effects of policies that preceded COVID-19. The draconian way of applying for SNAP and CHIP, the parsimonious assistance on healthcare, the gap in parsimonious assistance on healthcare between those who do qualify for Medicaid and those who qualify for price supports in the pooled insurance program. So I do think now is really an opportunity. I think that there is a majority of both Republicans and Democrats that recognize that Medicaid, pulling down Medicaid is important for us, particularly in light of the fact that revenues are just devastatingly low in the state coffers at this point.
Yeah.
Everything needs to be on the table.
Yeah. So on that front, something I've heard, and I know I didn't flag this earlier, but I've heard a lot of people talking about maybe expanding, legalizing marijuana or other options like that. Do you think that's a source of revenue that the state might look at? I mean, are we in such difficult times now? New options might be considered that were once considered totally out there.
Well, we were all surprised when the hemp bill passed. And so I think that perhaps we have a presumption about where the legislature is on the cash crop of marijuana that may be old news. And so I think that we should take a look at all of our alcohol and tobacco and lines and our taxation on those lines, and take a look at legalized personal use marijuana. There is all kinds of examples out there that show that it is both profitable to the state coffers and does not create some kind of, reefer madness in the state of Texas.
Not to mention goes a long way to help with ending, unfair police practices and a lot of the other kind of things that are happening in our country right now.
Well, that's another thing, in addition to the health recovery and the economic recovery from COVID-19, we absolutely need sustained attention on criminal justice reform. And so I have a 3-point plan. First off, the first point is that for decades, we have not seen an increase in index crimes per capita. As a matter of fact, we've seen a decrease. So the really violent stuff, folks who are really a threat to our public safety, really are a pretty stable percentage of our population and can be managed through the criminal justice system. What we've seen a big spike in since the 1970s, the late 70s, early 80s, actually, in the Just Say No to Drugs, war on drugs, is a pervasive belief that we could attack substance use disorder and other mental health issues through the criminal justice system. So people should not get diagnosed by a judge, and they should not get their care from their defense attorney. They should get it in the healthcare context.
Well, often there's confusion about what judges do and different roles. I remember when there was a fair amount of confusion about you wearing one of those hats, and then all of a sudden people were like, how could she be impartial if she's not doing that? And people don't even really understand what county judges do and what real judges do. And you start to understand why the system sometimes gets so confusing to so many people. But as you're looking towards the future, people hear you saying things that you want to do. A lot of that people might want to know, what have you done in the past? What are you the most proud of? Why is your track record as a civil servant qualifications for you being the state senator?
Sure. Well, in the criminal justice context, just to keep going with that for a moment, a couple of other things that I want to continue working on are the defederalization and demilitarization of our local police. And that's something I've been working on for a number of years at the county. And additionally, independent investigation and prosecution of officers who commit crimes, because officers should be held to the same standard as the people who they are sworn to protect. So I've done a lot of that over the course of my years. Helped pull up a mental health public defender's office, opening a sobering center as a diversion from arrest, also negotiating a partnership at the state level and the local level with a lot of very diverse views, bringing together a public defender's office too, which we had been arguing over probably for about 50 years and finally got it done. And I'm proud of that.
Excellent.
I'm also very proud of having pulled up the Better Builder program and applied Better Builder. That also was pretty contentious, but by bringing people to the table and saying, listen, we're going to stay at the table until we figure this out, we were able to apply Better Builder programs. We're a notoriously anti-union state. Let's face it. If it's not uniformed first responders, we don't extend supports and protections to workers. But by adopting a Better Builder program, we were able to extend protections to workers through contract at the county level. And I would like to take that up to the state and scale it. So those are a couple of things that I've done. And also the partnership that is looking to redevelop the Exposition Center, looking at redevelopment and opportunity building in the Eastern Crescent. And Project Connect, another great partnership that I'm proud to still be associated with, and I very much want to continue working on getting us really quality transit in the major metro of Austin.
Yeah, that was going to be my gotcha question. How are you going to fix Austin traffic? But in the larger context, Senator Watson had also really been talking about the Project Connect, and now we're hearing a lot about I-35 getting funding from TxDOT and the rail programs and all the different things. So I know this is a 60-year problem that it took to make this traffic jam, and we're not going to get out of that traffic jam in 60 days. But how do you see Project Connect? How do you feel about rail? How do you feel about expanding I-35?
Well, Chito Vela actually had a really wonderful opinion piece in the Chronicle recently, and I would advise everyone to go take a look at it. And I've been speaking with several people along these same lines, that when you are in an economic downturn, now is the time to lean in on big infrastructure projects that are going to benefit generations to come. And one of those big infrastructure projects is to really invest those one-time dollars, which we can get super cheap these days, I'm not talking about ongoing revenues. I'm not talking about bigger taxes. I'm talking about those one-time borrowed dollars in order to build the type of transit system. When I talk about a transportation system, I'm talking about all the mechanisms in which you move people, goods, services, and ideas. So or information, that would include broadband. So we need to have a way to move all four of those through these corridors so that just in the broadband context, we could use CARES Act dollars to expand broadband to rural Texas as well, so that folks could work from home more from Bastrop or Caldwell. They could access telemedicine because a third of the counties in the state of Texas have no hospital.
Right. Well, it's interesting because you're talking about that, and I think this actually dawned on people because I used to be on the Urban Transportation Committee. I'm not on that anymore, but the idea was repeatedly brought up about teleworking and staggering the hours, and just that was always met with like such a scoff. But then COVID happened, and people were staying at home, and all of a sudden people understood, like, hey, look, I'm on my computer, I'm working. And then if they had to get on the road, they're like, there's no traffic. It's like people started to understand that is a real possibility. Do you see that as a lasting opportunity for state government in Texas and the other big drivers of Austin traffic?
I do. I was the chair of the Clean Air Coalition, as well as on the executive committee and the vice chair for some period of time of CAMPO, and kept banging my head against the wall on that very issue of opening up capacity, that we could free up 20% of our overall highway capacity if everyone just commuted or telecommuted one day a week. Worked from home just one day. It's free 20% capacity. I mean, that's a huge dividend. And we were laughed at by Campo. And now, just as you said, COVID has proven that that's absolutely the case. And we've heard, at least anecdotally, and it'll be very interesting to see studies coming out of COVID-19, that a lot of people find that they are more productive working from home. As a matter of fact, they have a hard time establishing boundaries and stopping work.
Yeah, that's not my problem. I definitely drink more at home. But I understand other people do that. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. and we need to find ways to be more COVID-19 adaptive and just climate adaptive. That's the fourth plank of what I'd like to do at the Senate. There's health, there's economy, there's criminal justice reform, but then there's also climate change and preserving our water. In order to address climate change, we've got to address our tailpipe emissions. And part of that is increasing the capabilities of individuals to work from home.
Yeah.
And also managing our water supply, which is something I've been working on for years. That's another proud accomplishment. We finally got the Southwest Travis County Groundwater Conservation District, which was the last puzzle piece to manage our portion of the Trinity Aquifer. And also I've worked in collaboration with Hays County and Bastrop County on studies of our groundwater, both on the Trinity and on the Carrizo-Wilcox, which is going to be extremely important for us to protect those resources moving forward.
Yeah, and that's great. And to a lot of people, they don't understand how much of Austin really is over an aquifer, and how the things that we're doing with our cars and our roads directly affect our drinking water, directly affect Barton Springs, and kind of old Austin and the older generations of Austin that fought for Barton Springs reform, they know that. But with the influx of people that have moved to Austin in the last 5-10 years, I don't think most people truly understand how important that work is.
I think that also our understanding is expanding. I mean, for instance, the city of Austin is dependent on surface water, the Colorado River. Actually, groundwater we don't have a lot of it in Travis County, and mostly our groundwater, while it does provide drinking water in some homes, our groundwater is really key for our environmental flow. And then we look to the east to Bastrop, and they're sitting on a very large aquifer, and they are legitimately terrified, and we all should be legitimately terrified, that there will be a raid on that aquifer and a squandering of the resource by private interests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy, because you got to balance the kind of growth of protecting the aquifer on the west side of the town with the desired development of the east side of the town, but then you face some of these very challenges right there. Right. So you had already kind of alluded to this, but I don't think anybody has questioned your progressive bona fides. But how do you feel that you can truly represent the middle ground, or even the right wing of your district? It seems very likely that one of two good progressives is going to win this race, but how do you take into consideration all those concerns for everybody else?
Sure. Well, one example I give is that when I was a commissioner in Precinct 2, I could be much more of a bomb thrower, and it was great. It was very liberating. But when I became the county judge, I really had to listen to all 4 commissioners and understand what their trajectory was, and try and bring everyone together and move us forward as a team. Then further, when I became the chair of the Clean Air Coalition, that's over 5 counties. And I had to be able to understand the different perspectives of Caldwell County, Fayette County, Bastrop County, Caldwell, Burnett, and then also as vice chair of Campo, as you know, that's pretty contentious up there, and be able to sit down with Cynthia Long and understand what her priorities were and have a decent conversation with her rather than close off. Right. And then, through that experience of sort of tempering my wilder impulses, perhaps, I also became the chair of the Conference of Urban Counties, which is over 30 counties and represents probably more than 70% of the population of the state of Texas, and it's predominantly Republican. But they selected me as their chair. So I think that I have hopefully developed some skill in listening and understanding where we have some common ground and can move things forward progressively together.
Excellent.
I'm still a wild ass liberal, but I listen well, and I synthesize it into something that we could move forward together.
Well, that's great. Well, I know that a lot of people are supporting your effort. Do you have any endorsements you would like to highlight? Anybody who's lined up in your corner?
I do. I was really pleased to get the endorsement of the Chronicle and the Austin American Statesman over the last couple of days, which was really, really nice. And I also have the endorsement of Annie's List, the National Women's Political Caucus, Stonewall Democrats, and many others. I've got some great folks in my camp. Senator Barrientos, Judge Lena Hidalgo over in Harris County. We work very, very closely together. Judge Nelson Wolf down in Bexar County. Ricardo Samaniego, the judge out in El Paso County. Veronica Escobar, who used to be the chair of the Conference of Urban Counties before me, and now she's in the U.S. Congress.
Wow.
So, great folks. I love working with them and look forward to continuing to work with them on state level issues.
Excellent. Well, I know I'm very appreciative of your time, and I know there's things we could talk about forever. When you're a state senator, you got everything in the state weighing on your shoulders. But people want to find out more about what you think. What's your website? Where can they get more information about you?
Yeah, Sarah Eckhardt Austin. You can find me on Facebook. That's super easy. And then my website's just saraheckhardt.com. So really, if you type in Sarah Eckhardt, you will find me.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you have anything else that popped into your head you wish you had said, or any advice to the people watching right now?
I would say that, our way forward in COVID-19, our way forward is adaptation. So everybody, let's look for ways that we can adapt. And it's just like your mom told you. It's hard, but it's not complex. Wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart, cover your face with a mask when you go outside, and really don't go do non-essential things. Don't gather in non-essential groups so that we can keep this viral infection low and manageable within our hospital capacity. And that will get us to the other side faster. So thank you everyone for pulling together. It's all hands on deck.
Well, hopefully we have enough of a turnout that people are gathered together to vote, but socially distant, 6 feet apart.
6 feet apart. Big shout out to Dana de Beauvoir in Travis County, and also our elections administrators all across the state, looking for ways to keep us safe. Brave the vote. Brave the vote.
Well, this is, for a lot of people, I hope people understand this is one of those elections that it's going to be in the middle of July, but it's probably one of the most consequential, who's going to have extreme influence over the direction of the city, the county, the state. So hopefully everybody gets out there and gets their voice heard.
Thank you so much. Thanks for everything you're doing too.
Hey, thank you for your time, and I'll see you soon out there.
A lot of people know who you are from your long history at the state capitol, but you should, what do you tell people when you're introducing yourself to voters who Eddie Rodriguez is and why he's running for state senate?
Yeah, well, I start by telling them, that I've been fighting for working families for the last 18 years, because that's who I am. I'm originally from South Texas, from McAllen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley, and first in my family to go to college. Made it up to Austin and fell in love with the city, like everybody else who's not from Austin, and I never left. So I've been here 29 years now, I guess, almost 30. And so, and I tell them I'm running for the Senate because I have the best experience, judgment, and vision to guide us through this crisis that we're in right now, and in the long and hopefully, if I have something to say about it, equitable recovery to come. I tell them about some of the bills that I passed that I'm really proud of. Tell them that I helped 700,000 more kids get free breakfast through the expansion of the federal free breakfast program, and that's something I'm proud to have done. I've worked on affordable housing issues, which is a passion of mine, creating the state's first homestead preservation district, and there are other cities now that have emulated that. And so the city of Austin is using those tools to do that, to provide more affordable housing in areas where that are being gentrified, which is that was the whole early goal of that legislation. And I talked to them as well about the dual credit program. Because of a bill I passed, you have the students in high school are able to graduate with up to 2 years of college under their belt, either to take that to a 4-year institution, or maybe they'll have certification and go straight to work after high school. And that's something I'm really proud of. And that's led to the proliferation of more early college high schools. And I think that's to the great benefit of the students, and also the parents too. It's less money they might have to spend, or less money the student might have to borrow. So I just think that with what we're going through right now, the budget's going to be a really huge issue next session. I suspect it's going to be worse than the 2011 budget. We're probably looking at a $30 billion hole in our budget. Next session will be my 10th budget session. Right after the budget, you'll have redistricting come up. and that'll be a huge issue as well. And next session will be my fifth redistricting session, excuse me. One as a staffer, and then now 4 as a House member. And as a Latino senator, I'll be increasing the number of people of color in the Senate to 10, which still is not exactly reflective of, I think, where we are as a state, but I think that's a big step, especially in the redistricting process. With redistricting, some people may not remember, but there were 52 of us that went to Ardmore, Oklahoma back in 2003 when I was a freshman, and I was one of those to fight that redistricting. And I've sued Rick Perry and the state of Texas in 2011 because the Republicans just chopped up Travis County into 5 congressional pieces, and we took them all the way to the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court. Ultimately, we were not successful, but it was worth the fight, and I want to continue that fight in the Senate. And I just think, now more than ever, we need a proven progressive leader who will fight for criminal justice reform, working families, and small business. And I've had the 18 years experience to prove that out.
Yeah, I mean, that is, and I'm curious what you think when you get to the Senate, how that's going to work with not quite having the numbers. I mean, I think right now you could be in a situation where they might have the 60% number. Are they going to have to move the ball? How are we going to get stuff passed to the Senate, you think?
Well, I think it's going to be challenging. Anything with Dan Patrick is a challenge, and he always moves the ball, changes the rules of the game in the middle of the game. But I think also that, the 18 years, again, I tell people too, 18 years in the legislature doesn't automatically qualify me. It's about what I've done and been able to accomplish and passing the bills like that I talked about. Another one I did talk about was Beer to Go from last session, which was a very bipartisan effort to pass that. And I think I have that reputation of being a fighter for the values that I hold dear, the values of my constituents, but also to reach across the aisle and get things done. I mean, you can't get meaningful legislation passed as a Democrat unless you have Republican support. In the time that in the Senate, I've served with half of those senators were House members at one point in time, and I've served with all of those members. So I have those relationships, and I think that's really important in this coming session. That's going to be really critical, and I think those relationships will help get some things accomplished. I think that's just the way the legislature works. Is the relationships mean something, and you have to develop them over time. And I've done that. And I think, not to ramble on too much, but I will say that there are opportunities next session to work in a bipartisan manner to get some pretty big things done. I think I want to champion universal broadband access, affordable broadband. We have people in the rural communities that don't have access to the internet, and of course we have in the urban communities the digital divide. And now more than ever, we've seen how important internet access is during this time of COVID. I mean, you might have to work from home. At least at some part of the week. You might have to educate your kids at home. We don't know what's going to come down the pike for next school year, not yet anyway. And you can see your doctor now via telemedicine. And so if you don't have internet access, you're already at a terrible disadvantage. And now what we've seen with COVID is going forward, even we're going to be doing a lot more things in this way as we're doing it right now. And that's going to leave people that are already left behind even further behind. And so that's a priority of mine. And I think there's bipartisan support there. You got, rural areas, which are predominantly represented by Republican senators and representatives, and the urban areas that are predominantly represented by minority Democrats for the most part. And I think we can find that common ground.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's so important that we try to find, for Democrats, we've done this over and over again. We brought roads, farm to market roads to people in rural areas. We brought hospitals to people in rural areas. And for some reason, our message as progressive hasn't not been able to penetrate that and resonate with those people in a way that gets them to vote Democrat. And I think some of these issues that you're talking about really do that. And I think that is sort of the future. If we're going to turn Texas blue, we can't keep losing 85 to 15 in a rural county, and then allow them to, use the redistricting process to chop us up in such a way that they continue to have a majority of the people in Congress. And so, I remember that 2003. So
we shouldn't cede ground to the Republicans in the rural areas. I mean, we share a lot of values with people in the rural communities. What Republicans do is use wedge issues to just drive them to the Republican side. But I think you're right. As progressives, we share a lot of values with rural America, rural Texas, I should say, and we need to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and I really think redistricting should be another one of those issues, because at the base of it, it's fairness. And it's like, if you're in a rural area, you're not being represented either by this process. And so there are ways to talk to them. And so I've always liked that. And you've always had some interesting stuff too other bills. I think another issue that crosses that is vote by mail. And we've seen, such a failure of the leadership to, to demonize vote by mail when we find out they all vote by mail. And 37 states already allow anybody to vote by mail. So they had time to say, well, what is it that we need to do to make it safer? How do we as Democrats use this issue to highlight, sort of the failure along what we're seeing with backtrack now in the bars? I think come November, if this is still a thing, they're going to be backtracking on that, but it'll be too late. So what can we do now to push this issue? I know we just lost at the Supreme Court, but what else can we do?
Yeah, and I wanted to say it's disgraceful what the Republicans are doing, making people choose between their health, potentially their life, and voting and their right to vote. But Texas has historically been really hard to vote in. I mean, there's always hurdles to the voting process in Texas. It's always been that way, predominantly, I believe, to prevent minorities or limit the number of minorities that will go vote. I think, though, there is an opportunity here as well, because a lot of people that vote by mail are seniors, obviously, and a lot of seniors are Democrat and Republican. You have plenty of Republican seniors out there, and so to demonize it, as you say, and I agree with that term, is just, I think that it will backfire. And I think that when you see the numbers, what you're going to probably see, I think you're going to see the Texas House flip to become Democratic. I believe we're well on our way there. You're going to see the voting, the way the votes come out in November is going to open up the eyes of some of the Republicans too, to say, wait a minute, maybe we wouldn't have lost some of these seats if we had more vote by mail. Maybe the seniors that stayed home, that were Republican, stayed home because they were afraid to get sick. And of course, it takes something like that, a loss or something like that, to open up Republican eyes many times. But I do think this is just truly a moral issue. It is having everybody who wants to vote by mail to be able to vote by mail, and we have time coming, this session to look at that, to look at legislation about allowing anyone to vote by mail who wants to vote by mail. We can wrap that up. I know Celia Israel, who's a dear friend of mine, one of my colleagues, and is a supporter of mine, has worked on election reform for a long time, and I know she'll be a leader on that in the House, and I hope to be one in the Senate on that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I definitely appreciate that. It's such a personal thing, because you see, like, they've screwed this up so bad that now they're banking on people not turning out to be their path to victory, and so this isn't really a competitive Democrat versus Republican district. I mean, you're going to run like it is, of course. But, I think that you have, what's his name? City council member Zimmerman, Don Zimmerman is running. Is he running as a Republican?
Mm-hmm.
I can't ever tell. I mean, he strikes me as a libertarian, which is fine, but I think I'd be surprised to see that the Republicans really embrace him, but I guess they have. He's their candidate. Is he their chosen?
Well, there are two Republicans, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two Republicans in the race.
I saw one on TV the other day. It was a piece they did on all the candidates who are running. They started, but they have their convention coming up in a few weeks in Houston, and right now the governor is basically, I guess, going to allow them to go on and do it. Nobody's going to be wearing masks. People from all over the state. I feel like this is a point where their politics and their sort of rhetoric is really just going to come to head, and we'll see how much they truly believe it, right? Mm-hmm. Are they going to go and show up and not wear masks? Is this a safety hazard? I don't know. So
I think they will. I mean, I think they will show up. I think, you have your dogged Republicans that'll do that. I think the Democratic Party, we had our chance to do that, and we decided not to because it wasn't safe. We were more responsible. But they want to prove a point and show the president of the United States that they're with him, and that masks or wearing a mask is a sign of being a Democrat or a progressive, and all that craziness. It's just about public health. But the real problem with that is that it's not just those folks that are going to be at that Republican convention, because they're going to leave and they're going to go back to their homes and potentially infect other people, whether they're Republican or Democrat or whatever. It's truly a public health issue. And their politics is getting in the way of life and death for many people. I think that will, I hope, backfire. Honestly, I mean, I think that it should anyway.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the polls are showing that people by and large believe wearing masks is important. They believe public health is actually over opening the economy. But of course, if you wear a mask, we can continue to open the economy. but people aren't doing that because it's become a political issue. And I don't understand why they keep, it seems like such a bad political move too, since the president tried it first and nobody really showed up. Like 6,000 people showed up, and they're gonna, I mean, it just doesn't even seem like a winning issue. Even politics aside, people who aren't political don't feel safe when they go out and see people being cavalier.
I think the extremes have taken over. The extreme wing of that part of the Republican Party is pretty much taken over. It seems to me.
Oh, speaking of extreme wings taking over, it is. It's JD.
Hello.
How are you, man?
Party.
Sorry I'm late.
Oh, it's all right.
Oh man,
My laptop game is not strong around here.
Well, yeah, so we were just basically talking about the GOP convention that's coming up, but they're not wearing masks or anything, and it just seems like a bad political move. But we talked a little bit about all his experience and everything he's done in the past, and a little bit about what it's going to be like in the Senate coming up. So if you had any other questions you want to throw at him, we probably have another 5 minutes or so.
Sweet. Well, I mean, the big one that I'm interested in, I had two sets of questions, but the one that I think is the kind of the nature of some large shoes left unfilled from Senator Watson, just big projects kind of in the works, specifically, the I-35 project and Project Connect, and as a state senator, what your thoughts are on burying I-35, building Project Connect, the little challenge of fixing Austin traffic.
Right, the little challenge. Well, I think Kirk was on the right path. I mean, I agree with I support Project Connect, and I agree with Kirk on what his vision was for 35. So I would try to continue that. Now, we'll just say I live about 5 blocks just east of 35 and just north of the river, and I live in a certain neighborhood called the East Cesar Chavez neighborhood association, and we have a plan that we put in place in terms of in 2000, I guess it was, so 20 years ago. I would hope that what happens on 35 will respect what the neighborhood plan is, and to kind of support the neighborhood in that way here where I live, but also along wherever that's going to happen along near the downtown area, that the people that live there, their wishes are respected, and but I think ultimately it'll definitely help traffic, and I support it 100%. Now, Project Connect, I'm very supportive of it. If it goes on the ballot in November, I think we're just living in such weird times right now, and I do worry that the voters may not be as excited about it at post-COVID, or maybe we're still in it in November. So that's my concern. But I think once this race is over and I'm in the Senate, I want to be a voice to get people out there to vote on that too.
Excellent. And then, the kind of an easy softball question is, do you have any exciting endorsements and people that are supporting your campaign that you want to highlight?
Sure. Well, I have most of the endorsements right now. I mean, I guess the ones I'll just think off the top of my head, I think Education Austin is a really important one that I'm very proud of. AFT, American Federation of Teachers, they're with me. I'm going to be rolling out a couple tomorrow. I have the Austin Firefighters. I have the Black Austin Democrats, almost all the Democratic clubs, but really proud of the Black Austin Democrats endorsement, and the Chronicle endorsement as well is something that I'm proud to have. And we're just going to keep plugging away. I think it's official, but we're rolling it out tomorrow. But Margaret Gomez is endorsing me. We're going to roll that out officially tomorrow. And I have, many elected officials, most notably Donna Howard, Celia Israel, and Jeannie Hinojosa, my colleagues in the House, who the 4 of us were all thinking about running for this. And for various reasons, they decided not to. And their friendship, they're like family to me, and their friendship and support means a hell of a lot to me. And they're backing me up 100%.
Well, there is one that you're forgetting that I near and dear to my heart.
The beer line. Yes. Go ahead.
The craft brewers pack. How could you forget the most important of them all?
When you have 100+ endorsements, I'm sorry, you're right, because I was telling Joe that was one of the bills that I'm most proud of passing. It may not have changed the world, but it was an example of how you have to build coalitions to get something passed, and that was not an easy bill to pass. I mean, I passed it as an amendment, but you had to find the right Democrats, the right Republicans to get it through to to defeat a very powerful special interest and to get it to the Senate and shepherd it from there. So that's something I'm really proud of, and I'm very, very happy to have the Brewers PAC supporting me.
Awesome. Well, I was definitely not late to get on the Zoom call because I had too much beer yesterday. Definitely not late.
That's not why.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Rep. Really appreciate you taking some time on a Sunday
Sure.
to just a little bit about everything you're doing. Very gracious, and good luck out there. Any final thoughts? Where can people find your campaign? How can they donate? How can they get
Yeah, they just go to eddiefortexas.com, and I have a lot of my position and policy ideas that I've actually been trying to champion for the last 18 years. I have been championing for the last 18 years, and what I want to work on moving forward in the state Senate. So just go to eddiefortexas.com, and I'll be on there. You can donate and volunteer and all that kind of stuff. Which volunteering in the time of COVID really just means calling and texting and those kind of things, because we can't go door to door or anything like that.
Yeah, working from home.
Working from home.
Sure. Well, thank you. And,
Thank you, guys.
good luck from home.
All right. See you guys.
Peace.
Y'all take care.
You too.